When I first moved back in with my parents, it was supposed to be temporary. My husband and I had just gone through a rough patch. He'd lost his job, our lease was ending, and with a 5-year-old daughter to care for, the math simply didn't add up. My parents offered to let us stay in their basement until things got better. But I didn't want to freeload. My dad had just retired, my mom worked part-time at a clinic, and I knew their finances weren't limitless. So I made an arrangement. I'd pay them $700 every week to cover rent, utilities, and groceries. They were hesitant at first. We're your parents, not your landlords, my mom said, but I insisted. I wanted to feel like we were pulling our own weight. For a while, it actually worked. My mom loved having her granddaughter around. My dad fixed things around the house and bragged to his golf buddies about how the whole family was together again. We'd eat dinner together, watch movies, and it almost felt like the comfort of my childhood home had returned. But slowly, something shifted. My parents started treating the arrangement less like a family helping each other and more like a business transaction. They'd leave receipts for household repairs on my nightstand. My mom began complaining about how much water we used, how many groceries we consumed. If I was a day late with the weekly payment, she'd remind me, not angrily, but firmly, like a landlord collecting rent. Still, I told myself it was fine. We were adults sharing a space, money was bound to complicate things a bit. I didn't want to start a fight. After all, they were helping us through one of the hardest times in our lives. But I had no idea that when my daughter's 6th birthday came around, the one she'd been counting down to for months, that arrangement would suddenly feel like something much darker than helping family. My daughter, Emma, had been talking about her 6th birthday for weeks. Every morning, she'd wake up and ask, "How many more sleeps, Mommy?" She wanted a princess party, complete with pink balloons, cupcakes, and her grandparents, Nana and Papa, sitting right next to her when she blew out her candles. Since we were still staying at my parents' house, I figured it'd be easy. I asked my mom a week before, would it be okay if we have a small party here next Saturday? Just a few of Emma's classmates, some family, maybe a cake. She didn't say no, but her tone was off. She looked up from her coffee and said, "Well, your dad and I might have plans. You know, we don't usually do parties anymore. But sure, if you keep it small." It felt odd. Emma was their only grandchild, and they'd always made a big deal of her birthdays before. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe they just wanted some quiet time. The morning of Emma's birthday, I decorated the backyard myself. Pink streamers, a rented bounce house, cupcakes from a local bakery. I wanted her to feel special, even if our lives were still a bit messy. The party started at noon. Her friends arrived, giggling and running around. My husband grilled hot dogs. Everything looked perfect. But noon came and went. 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock. No sign of my parents. I checked upstairs, their car was gone. No note. No text. Nothing. Emma asked me 3 times, "Where's Nana and Papa?" I kept saying, "They'll be here soon, sweetheart." But deep down, I knew they weren't coming. By the time we sang, "Happy Birthday," I felt a tightness in my chest. I snapped a few pictures, pretending to smile, while Emma's eyes flicked toward the empty chairs where her grandparents should have been. That night, when everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. Finally, I texted my mom. Greater than, "Hey, you two didn't make it to Emma's party today. Is everything okay?" Her reply came an hour later, short, cold, and nothing like I expected. When my phone buzzed, I felt a mix of relief and irritation. I just wanted an explanation. Maybe they'd had car trouble, or one of them wasn't feeling well. But the message my mom sent stopped me cold. Greater than, we didn't feel comfortable attending since we weren't invited as guests, just as babysitters or hosts. You're already paying us to stay here. We didn't think it was our place. I blinked at the screen, rereading it 3 times. Not their place. What was she even talking about? I hadn't treated them like babysitters, I'd just assumed, as family, they'd want to be there for their granddaughter's birthday. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. So I went upstairs, still in my pajamas, and knocked on their bedroom door. My dad opened it halfway, his face stiff. "Dad," I said quietly, "what's going on?" "Emma was heartbroken today." He sighed. "We didn't mean to upset her. But your mother and I felt used. You live here, you pay rent, that's fine. But everything feels transactional now. We're not a family anymore, just roommates." That word hit me like a punch. Roommates. Roommates don't babysit or plan birthdays, I started, but he cut me off. You made it that way, he said. You insisted on paying us. You wanted this to be a business arrangement, remember? I felt tears rising, a mix of anger and disbelief. I paid because I didn't want to take advantage of you. I thought it was the right thing to do. My dad just shook his head. Well, maybe we misunderstood each other. He closed the door gently, leaving me standing in the hallway, humiliated, confused, and furious. Downstairs, the decorations were still up. Pink streamers drooped over the living room. The half-eaten cake sat on the counter, candles bent and waxy. I looked at the photos on my phone, Emma smiling, but glancing at those empty chairs, and felt a heaviness settle over me. That night, I made a decision. Something had to change. The next morning, the house was painfully quiet. My parents went about their usual routine, coffee, news, light chatter, as if nothing had happened. But the air between us was thick. I could feel the tension like static every time we crossed paths. I tried to keep things civil for Emma's sake. She was still playing with her new toys, still talking about her party like it had been perfect. But I noticed she didn't mention Nana or Papa once. That silence from her little mouth said everything. A few days later, I decided to clear the air once and for all. After dinner, I sat down with my parents in the living room. Look, I began, I think we need to talk about what happened with Emma's birthday, and about this whole arrangement. My mom didn't look up from her tablet. What's there to talk about? We already said how we feel. How you feel? I asked, trying to stay calm. Mom, I'm paying $700 a week to live here. That's $2,800 a month. That's more than some people pay for a whole apartment. I thought we were doing the right thing, being responsible. But somehow, it's turned me into a tenant in my own parents' house. My dad sighed, you're not our tenant, but you're not a child anymore either. We thought paying rent meant you wanted independence, not emotional involvement. I stared at him, stunned. Independence. I'm trying to raise a kid, save money, and rebuild after a rough year, and you think I don't want emotional involvement? You're her grandparents, not landlords. My mom finally set her tablet down. Her expression softened slightly. We just didn't know where the boundaries were anymore. You pay us every week, you handle everything on your own. We didn't want to overstep. That word again. Overstep. So not showing up to her birthday, that was staying in your lane. I said quietly. Because to a 6-year-old, it looked like abandonment. Neither of them responded. My dad looked away. My mom wiped her glasses, pretending to be busy. I stood up and said, I think it's time I start looking for another place. My dad looked up quickly. You don't have to. No, I interrupted, voice breaking, I do. Because right now, we're all just pretending this works. And it doesn't. That night, I tucked Emma into bed, kissed her forehead, and told her things might be changing soon. She smiled sleepily and whispered, as long as you're there, Mommy. That was all I needed to hear. The next week, I quietly started searching for a new place to live. Every night after Emma went to bed, I'd sit at the kitchen table with my laptop, scrolling through listings. Apartments, townhouses, basement rentals, anything within 30 miles that didn't cost more than what I was already paying my parents. But everything decent was either too expensive or too far from Emma's school. I felt trapped, paying nearly $3,000 a month to live in my parents' basement, but unable to afford moving out. The irony made me sick. One evening, while I was on a video call with a realtor, my mom came downstairs. She stood in the doorway, watching me. When I hung up, she said quietly, "You're really leaving, huh?" I didn't answer right away. I think it's best. For all of us. She sighed and sat down across from me. I know things have been tense. But we never meant for it to turn into this. I wanted to believe her. But a part of me was still hurt, and angry. Then why didn't you just talk to me instead of skipping your granddaughter's birthday? Her eyes welled up. Because we thought you didn't need us anymore. You handle everything yourself, you pay us like tenants do, and you never ask for help. It made us feel like we were just a roof over your head. That stung, because it wasn't entirely wrong. I had been trying so hard to prove I wasn't a burden that I'd accidentally built a wall between us. I leaned back and said softly, I didn't pay you because I didn't need you. I paid you because I respected you. I thought I was doing right by you. She nodded slowly. We see that now. But, it still hurt. Before I could respond, Emma's footsteps echoed from upstairs. She peeked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. Nana, are you mad at Mommy? My mom's face softened. She stood up, knelt beside Emma, and pulled her into a hug. No, sweetheart. Nana's not mad at anyone. I watched them for a moment, feeling a crack in the ice that had frozen between us. Maybe there was still a chance to fix this. But just as that thought crossed my mind, my dad came down the stairs holding an envelope. He handed it to me and said, "Before you decide anything, you should see this." I opened it, and my stomach dropped. Inside the envelope was a folded sheet of paper, my name printed neatly at the top in my father's handwriting. I thought it might be some kind of apology or maybe a list of suggestions about the house. But as I unfolded it, my heart sank. It was an itemized breakdown. Electric bill, $183. Water, $92. Shared groceries, $276. Household maintenance contribution, $150. And at the bottom, circled in red ink, total owed this month, $2,801. My dad stood there, arms crossed, while my mom looked away. "Dad," I said slowly, "what is this?" He exhaled. "It's just to make sure everything's fair. You said you wanted to be responsible, so I wanted you to see where your money goes." My voice cracked. "Fair. You're charging me for groceries you eat. For water my 6-year-old uses to brush her teeth. Are you serious?" "It's not like that," he said defensively. "We're just trying to keep things organized. You know how easily misunderstandings can happen when money's involved." I shook my head in disbelief. "You made it about money. I offered to pay out of respect, not to become your tenant." My mom finally spoke up, voice trembling. "Your father didn't mean it that way. We thought having things written down would help." "Help," I said bitterly. "Help what? Remind me that I'm not family anymore." I could see my mom's eyes fill with tears, but I couldn't stop. All the frustration from months of tension came pouring out. "I paid you more than I paid for our old apartment. I cleaned, cooked, watched Emma, and tried to make this feel like home. And instead of being grandparents, you became landlords with a calculator." My dad's face hardened. "If that's how you see it, maybe you really should move out." For a moment, silence filled the room. My mom put a hand on his arm, but he didn't look at her. I felt my whole body shaking, not just from anger, but from heartbreak. "Fine," I said quietly. "I will." I took the envelope, folded it, and walked back to the basement. That night, while Emma slept peacefully beside her stuffed unicorn, I sat awake scrolling through apartment listings again, my tears blurring the screen. I didn't know where we'd go or how we'd manage, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't raise my daughter in a house where love had a price tag.